I'm really excited about this. We've been talking about ways to encourage facilitators of Kaleidoscope Play and Learn groups to focus more on the intentional caregiver learning aspect of the program. And so this is one that was really fun for me to even think about, was to how to bring those everyday activities that people do while they're caring for children, just sort of the routine things that they're doing throughout the day, and how to turn those into teachable moments. So that is what we're going to be talking about today. And also towards the end, I'll talk to you or give you some information about the contest that we're going to have that will hopefully encourage you to try out these ideas and to bring some new ideas to the rest of us about what we can do to support caregiver learning around turning everyday activities into teachable moments. And also going to be trying out a couple of the features here, GoToWebinar, of seeing if some of you are coming in by phone and or by have a microphone handy as part of your computer that you're viewing, to be able to ask questions over the line as well as to ask questions in the question box. So, oh good. Thank you, Jen Trudeau. I got a note from her saying she has a 3-month-old baby on her lap, so she's muted. So, great. I think everybody is muted at this point, and then when it comes time to ask questions or to provide some input in some exercises that we'll have following, I'll make sure that I give you some instructions on how to do that, how to raise your hand, and I can unmute you here as well. So I will go on. So as you recall, Kaleidoscope Play and Learn has a theory of change, and this is an abbreviated version of it, and caregiver learning is one of the essential activities that happens, and it's really the key to what happens in a Kaleidoscope Play and Learn group, or one of the many keys. So again, our theory of change is that through the group and through our programs, we're providing family, friend, and neighbor caregivers with information, resources, support, and connections so that they, in turn, those caregivers and parents, can provide high-quality child care and development opportunities at home or wherever they are during the rest of the week, so that all children are in safe, nurturing environments, receiving high-quality care, and are prepared to succeed in school and life. So obviously, your role as facilitators and caregivers' role as those providing childcare and supporting the children in our communities to be prepared for school are very key components to all of this. So your role as a facilitator and caregiver learning, as you'll recall, from previous discussions as well as from the Kaleidoscope Play and Learn 101, is, knowing more about what caregivers are interested in learning about, getting to know them and what they're interested in, and helping them to learn how children learn through play and everyday interactions, and as well as those things that they might also be interested in learning more about. And you as a facilitator can provide practical, easy-to-do ideas for what to do at home to promote early learning. And going back to that theory of change, remembering that the care where we're going to have our greatest impact is what the caregivers can bring home and do with the children throughout all the time that they are spending with that child, not just in the Kaleidoscope Play and Learn group. And you're also providing a place for caregivers to practice some of this new learning in the safety of a community of others who are like them in your Kaleidoscope Play and Learn group. So not only giving them some information, but giving them a nice place to practice it and try on some of those new ideas as well. And hopefully you are also encouraging those caregivers to see themselves as important in supporting children's early learning, and in addition to giving them some ideas of what they can do and making it fun, because you want people to actually do this. So helping them to see some of the joys and pleasures of supporting children. So when I was thinking about, what are those everyday moments that can be turned into teachable opportunities for caregivers, I I thought back to even my own days as a parent and thinking, and as a caregiver to nieces and family friends. It's like, what did I do throughout that day? And when I started to think about it, oh my goodness, it almost made me tired. So I have sort of the crazy clock in here, and all of you who are parents and caregivers yourself know what it's like to have young children at home with you. So usually, the caregiver's up and early, making breakfast, getting ready for the day, packing school lunches, doing all sorts of things like that, helping little ones eat their breakfast and getting dressed, maybe making some beds or doing some tidying up before going out, either by bus or walking or driving, to pick up some groceries at the store for the next couple of days. And then when they get home, make lunch, get kids ready to eat, help them eat, clean up after lunchtime, doing the dishes here. And for some kids, taking a nap is important, so helping that child get ready to take that nap. And maybe while the children are taking a nap, or maybe while the children are playing, taking care of some household chores like laundry. And I love this picture because it's just like, it kind of shows sort of the trying to get things done fast and being very active in that, doing a little vacuuming, a little sweeping up, whatever the chores for that day happen to be. And then getting ready for dinner, mealtime, cooking, setting the table, cleaning up after dinner, cleaning the children up before their bedtime, helping them to ease into bedtime, and then finally helping them to put them to bed and tucking them in. And then somewhere in between, in this little space between tucking the children to bed and making breakfast for the next day, hopefully having a few moments for themselves as well as having a time to rest. So as everybody knows, the caregivers are really busy and they have lots of things to do to take care of the children, take care of the house, take care of the rest of the family. So even without thinking about how they're going to support early learning. So I envision that each of these moments presents itself with some really great early learning opportunities. If the caregiver involves the child or even just does some very simple things to turn that activity into an early learning activity. So these everyday activities, can be really powerful moments in learning opportunities because they happen every day, several times a day. I mean, just imagine if each one of those activities on that previous slide, the caregiver involved the child with just one little piece of that task or a conversation during that task. Think about all of how that all accumulates into several different learning opportunities for the child throughout the day. Most of these require some sort of interaction between the caregivers and children, and we all know that positive interaction, talking and being together, is going to affect the children positively and help them social emotionally, help them build vocabulary, all of those things. And these everyday activities don't take a lot of time or effort to turn into teachable moments, and we'll talk about that in just a few minutes. And they don't necessarily require any special toys, equipment, or tools. In fact, they don't. And everybody can do it. You don't need to have a master's degree again or any degree. You can be a middle school student who is helping out a younger sibling and do these things as well as a grandparent or a great-grandparent who's doing that. And once the child is involved in helping out with some of these everyday activities or the caregiver is bringing some learning opportunities to those moments, it can help cover many aspects of the children's development: fine and gross motor skills, language and talking, sensory, problem solving, social and emotional skills, all wrapped up into one little task. And they can make chores fun and meaningful if helping to change caregiver's mindset to it just being a chore as to being a teaching moment can add some different meaning to accomplishing that chore with a child and make it more interesting for both the child as well as the caregiver. And this is something you can include the whole family with. So if a caregiver has several children at home that they're taking care of, they can also be including all of those children in that, or as I said before, if there's even an older sibling, doesn't need to even be that much older, is helping out with the everyday activities and involving the younger child, then they can be included as well. So questions, and if you do have a question, go ahead and type them in the question box. And I'll move on to the next slide. So let's look, we're going to look at a couple of these different everyday activities and just sort of break them down into what caregivers can do to make them into teachable moments. And, you know, when caregivers do that, what the child learns and what sort of benefits the child reaps from that intentional caregiver teaching or involvement in that task. So imagine a child getting dressed and the caregiver helping them. And this could be even an infant on up to a preschooler. You know, what happens? You're doing all sorts of things of picking out clothes, to putting the clothes on, taking maybe some other clothes off, putting them away. And all of this could be done really quickly without any sort of intention. And they can also be done really quickly with some intention, or even slowing it down just a tiny bit and capturing even more learning moments out of it. So imagine, you know, as they're picking out clothes or getting dressed, that the caregiver talks about the color, the texture, the names for the clothing. And while they're doing that, the child is learning new words. Oh, let's put on your soft red sweater today. They can count buttons, toes, socks. You know, the little baby's got their feet kicking in the air. You can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 toes on that foot. And the child is learning about numbers and about counting. The caregiver can describe step by step what she's going to be doing, or what she is doing. Is first I'm going to pull up your pants, and then let's button the button and zip the zipper, put your socks on, put your shoes on. And through that, the child is starting to learn sort of some order to things, the sequencing, which is a skill that is needed in writing and math, and sort of seeing step by step what happens to come to a conclusion, or come to a storytelling, or come to a problem or a solution in a math problem. The caregiver could also talk about why he or she is choosing particular clothing for the weather or the activities they're doing. So it's a sunny, warm day out, and let's think about what we should wear today. I think maybe a short sleeve shirt, and maybe the shorts would be good because it's going to be warm out. Well, while that caregiver is talking about that, the child is learning a bit about problem solving, about paying attention to nature, about what the weather is, what kind of activities that are happening. And throughout all of this, of course, they're learning new words, because the more the caregiver talks, the more words the child is hearing, and the more new words they'll be learning as well. Then for older children, those that have some skills, giving the child a chance to dress himself, and, you know, starting with toddlers on up, and giving them the task of doing something that is at their ability, or pushing the envelope just a little bit. This, of course, will take a little bit more time than dressing the child, but the child learns some problem solving. Is like, how do I put my arm through that sleeve, and how do I pop my head through that t-shirt? Working through some focus, patience, working through frustration. My head is not quite fitting through that t-shirt. I'm going to have to pull a little harder. And they're learning, you know, all sorts of fine and gross motor skills just doing that activity themselves. And then if the caregiver is giving some choice in what to wear, they can help coach the child through, or allow them to make some choices on their own of some independence, some problem solving, And negotiation. It's like, no, Mama, I want to wear the pink dress today. It's like, well, it's going to be cold out. I think you'd be warmer in the blue sweater, and learning how to negotiate those situations. And maybe some natural cause and effect of like natural consequences like, yeah, it is a little chilly out. I might want to put that blue sweater on. So does it make sense for folks? Oh, I've got a question from Monica. Oh my goodness, how do you help a child work through frustration? That is a good one and a $1,000,000 question, isn't it? I mean, I think it all depends upon like the age of the child and the temperament of the child too. And I think for a parent and a caregiver to find that balance between allowing a child to try something new and experience some frustration and to experience their own resourcefulness and resilience in that situation, balancing that with not letting it get too far, that the child is getting too frustrated that it's sort of defeating the purpose. So, yes. Yes, Monica, yes, especially for a very temperamental child. Yes, and I have one of those myself, and I would say I agree. And she was also very determined. So I think giving some encouragement, support, knowing how to balance it, knowing when to say, okay, can I help you out, or what would you like help with? And in some situations, being able to say, maybe it's time to take a break from this task and take a time just to get a deep breath and kind of clear our heads and then come back to it when we're more ready to do so. So I hope that helps. And in fact, we are in the process now of writing a caregiver lesson guide on that very topic of talking with caregivers in the Kaleidoscope Play and Learn groups too about trying to find that balance. And unfortunately, I don't think there is any sort of recipe or checklist that we could do for that, but it's just a matter of sort of balancing it. So good. Oh, thank you, Monica. So mealtime, again, I mean, thinking about what happens at mealtime, and I'm thinking of mealtime separate from cooking at this in this instance, is just thinking about, the kind of preparation that happens and like setting the table, getting food and supplies gathered up and ready for mealtime, and then some of the cleanup time that might happen afterwards. So, having the child set the table or put certain items on the table, and even I think toddlers with some assistance could do some of these things. And if they can reach the table and put silverware on it, I think this works great. So they can learn about numbers. You need to count the number of forks or the number of glasses or the number of chopsticks that are going to be at the table. And the child also learns she can help her family, that she has an important role in helping prepare this meal together. The caregiver can help the child fill glasses with water, tea, milk. Think about the fine motor skills that happen there, some eye-hand coordination, and also more or less. There's some other ideas about, early math concepts like that. Talking about what they're eating while they're working together to even at the meal. In eating the meal together is talking about here, these are the peas and what a beautiful green color they are. Are they hot? Are they warm? What do they taste like? What do they feel like in your mouth? And that sort of learning new words, again, maybe even some sensory integration, nutrition, certainly you could point out, things about, what those peas are going to help you do as you grow. Ask the child to wipe off the table after eating. And again, they're learning some motor skills, sensory feeling of the washcloth or the sponge in their hands, eye-hand coordination, all those things. So I'd like you all to try to think about some things that caregivers could do to turn cooking into a teachable moment. And think about the things that caregivers can do and then some of the things that children learn. So go ahead and just either think through it, or if you've got a pen and a piece of paper available, jot down some of your own ideas, and I'll get back to you. And if you have some ideas, go ahead and try clicking the raise your hand on, I'm not sure exactly which pane it is for you, but there is a window pane that should have a hand that you could raise if you're available, if you can talk over a microphone. And if not, go ahead and you can type in the question box any ideas that you have about what caregivers can do to turn these into teachable moments and what children learn from it. So go ahead and we'll have a little bit of quiet time to do that. Okay, I see one hand raised. Feel free to type in the question area there too. So Wei Ling, I'm going to try to unmute you here, and let's see if it works. Hi, Wei Ling, are you there? Yeah, hi, Wei Ling. Wei Ling? I'm sorry, we can't seem to hear you, Wei Ling. Go ahead and type in any things that you have. I'm sorry, Wei Ling. If you can type in the question box. Oh, yeah, Wei Ling is saying her mic probably isn't working, so sorry about that. Anybody else? Go ahead and either raise the hand there if you've got a microphone, or type it in the question box and then I can read it out loud. Okay, Fran, let's try it with Fran. Okay. Hi, Fran. Hello, Fran. Oh, I'm sorry, Fran, I can't hear you either. Oops. Okay, well, we'll go back to the somewhat older technology here, and Monica is writing in about making a sandwich. So together, making the sandwich, the child learns fine motor, hand-eye coordination, following directions, and shapes when you ask them if they want triangles or squares. Ooh, very good. That's great. Anybody else? So Monica, in your example, it sounds like the caregiver is directly involving the child on maybe some hands-on helping in making the sandwiches, and asking, let's put the lettuce down first, let's put the turkey on next, and then let's put the cheese on, and then put another piece of bread on top of it. And would you like me to cut it into squares or triangles? Great, great example. Or would you like to cut it into squares or triangles? And let me show you how we can make those shapes. Oh, good, Wei Ling. Yes, rice cooking, measuring cups of rice and water, math skill. Absolutely. And especially if you've got like an automatic rice cooker where you can just toss both the rice and the water in and talk about the quantities of water, the ratio of water to rice to put in there. Extremely safe activity. There's not even any heat involved at that point yet. Great. And Sue is saying making dough. Yeah, absolutely. If you're making whatever kind of dough you're making, I mean, stirring, using your hands to knead bread dough. Think about all that goes into that. I mean, that's just like edible Play-Doh, right? Or it's going to be edible Play-Doh. And measuring, and again, following instructions. These are really good things. Let's see. Oh, Fran is saying, I wonder what will happen when we mix. How many scoops do you think are needed to fill this? I wonder why they don't taste the same even though they're both white. Oh, great questions. Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, and just think about all of that, what children are learning in any of those questions. You know, early math skills, a little bit of science, cause and effect of kind of critical thinking, problem solving, as well as some of those more, obvious ones too. So Mabel is saying, read the label. Yeah, read the food labels. Children are learning about healthy foods, how much sugar content is in there, how much fat. Great, great. And they're exposing them to seeing how you use reading in an everyday activity, not just in books, but you use it throughout your day, and numbers and how numbers are meaningful to us and important to us. Great. Good examples. Thank you. So, yes, and I came up with a few myself too, just in case we needed it, but, talking about the names of the food, how it tastes, its color, measuring ingredients, help have the child wash the vegetables and fruit, sensory, wet, cold textures of food, they're going to learn these kinds of things from it. And I remember out of necessity, even raising my own daughter, of trying to make dinner and kind of quote unquote entertain her at the same time as, like, I would take the bag of potatoes out and just say, she would sit in her high chair and just say, okay, can you take the potatoes out of the bag, or can you take the green beans out of the bag that I collected them in from the grocery store? And she would sit so happily there at her high chair and just helping me out. So if I would have thought about it, I probably could have talked a little bit more about, ooh, what does it feel like, or what color are those potatoes, what's the skin feel like? Great, good. Well, let's try it with bath time again, too. And I think because I've learned maybe the hand raising isn't working so well, or the mics out there aren't working so well, let's go ahead and just type in your ideas in the question box. So think again, during bath time, what are some things that caregivers can do to turn that into a teachable moment, and what are some things that children learn from that? So I'll give you a little time to think and type. Okay, starting to get some ideas in here. So Wei Ling is saying, caregiver asking what toy will float, what will not. Yeah, and having a variety of things. I mean, it could be a toy, maybe some Tupperware containers, or bring in some clean rocks from outside or something. What's going to float, what's not? Great. And Debbie's saying, we do bubbles in the bath a lot, which yields lots of teachable moments, how to make one thing from another. What happens if we blow on the bubbles? What happens if we smush them in our hands? Or let's practice putting them on our body parts. Bubbles on your head, your knees, etc. Yeah, and think about all the things that children are learning doing with the bubbles. And they're really fun too. So learning about the textures and body parts, learning how to, the fine motor skills that it takes to take a bubble in your fingers and try to stretch it out and make it bigger without popping it. Well, that's probably some self-regulation skills in that too. So any other ideas? Lisa. Oh, Lisa, yay. She's coming from Iowa, all the way from Iowa. Welcome. Empty versus full. Yeah. I mean, you can even talk about the bathtub being empty or full, or how full you're going to make it, halfway, 2/3, or cups or Tupperware using there. Mabel is saying we can teach the color of their clothes, towels. Yes, yes, as they're getting dressed or undressed at bath time, talk about the colors, the towels, whatever is in the room there. Body parts, says Sue. Yes, pointing those out. Drying off, I'm going to dry your right arm, I'm going to dry your left arm. And you can do that with babies. They love just to have that interaction. And Monica, pouring and emptying containers. Absolutely. When you think about bath, that is just like one gigundo sensory table right there, isn't it? And a kid can actually get in there and really enjoy it. Debbie's saying cooperation in the washing process. What child can do on their own versus what parent needs to help with. That's right. And, probably some negotiation skills that go into that too. Mom, let me try that. And Wei Ling saying hot versus cold water. That's right. And some cause and effect, maybe helping them open up the faucets to let the water through and feeling the temperature of the water and putting it a little bit more hot to make it warmer or a little bit more cold to make it cooler. Great. Great ideas. Thank you. So yeah, some other ideas I had, same thing about body parts and talking about the way the soap feels and smells and helps the child feel the bath, singing a soothing song while drying off. Oh, and Mabel has just chimed in too with teaching children how to protect their own body. I think that's great. I mean, there's lots of different ways that you can talk about that, and different ways to protect your body against burning from too hot water, or taking care of your skin, to even like places that aren't to be touched by anybody except maybe a doctor during an exam, or a parent if they need to help out. So some safety in that regard too. Oops. So good. Thank you. So you guys got it. You guys know this stuff. So in addition to learning each of those things that we talked about, I mean, I think there's some universal things that children learn when a caregiver involves them in any sort of everyday activity. I mean, the child is going to learn that she's important to and loved by that caregiver. That just spending that time and that interaction, especially if it's loving interaction, it sends that message. And that he's a helpful member of his family. And these are really important values that we don't always focus on, and when we get more focused on sort of the academic or more developmental skills. But I think this is really important. And then it's, helpful member and how that family cooperates together and different roles that family members might play. The world is an interesting place. Wow, I didn't know how interesting getting dressed could be, or what what the clothing is, or where it was made, or whatever conversation that caregiver is bringing to that situation and to that task. And certainly they learn about her culture and family's values. You know, talking about why we wear the clothes we do for certain activities, as well as the food we eat and why we eat it, why it's important that people help out or what they're doing. And it isn't necessarily sitting down and talking about this is the way we do our culture, but it's just that very natural way that children learn and that families teach about their home cultures. So how do we bring this to our group, and how do we make this turn into intentional caregiver learning in the group? How can we make this topic alive as part of one of your group sessions? So let's look at the intentional activities that need to happen in each and every Kaleidoscope Play and Learn group. You know, the first one being intentional caregiver learning. And so, you know, you've got a topic here. If you choose an everyday activity, you've bring those key messages about what that activity is and what the teachable moments are and what children gain from it. Then plan some sort of coordinated group activity around it. The child-directed playtime, the free playtime that we often have where there's different areas or centers where children can play. And then how do we build it into caregiver relationship building, which is also an essential activity, as well as intentional building of caregiver leadership. And then sort of as a bonus round, these aren't essential activities, but they have been included in our lesson guides, thinking about home activities that you can suggest or encourage that caregivers try out at home that are connected with your topic, with whatever everyday activity you're highlighting in your group. And then also thinking about what kind of school readiness connection is there? How does participating in this everyday activity connect with a school readiness skill or a couple of skills? So I want to just look here at the group session planning worksheet, and this is part of your caregiver lesson guide toolkit. So hopefully everybody has a copy of this, and we've talked about it at the Kaleidoscope Play and Learn 101 as well. But this is one way that you can use to plan your group so that you're hitting all of the essential activities that I just talked about. And I took this and thought about, you know, getting dressed. So we talked about the different things that, you know, let's use this as an example, getting dressed of the intentional caregiver learning piece is going to be about how to turn this everyday activity into a teachable moment and letting them know what children learn. So just as a review, these are the kinds of things that we talked about a few minutes ago. And then I used the session planning worksheet to figure out how could I, if I were facilitating this, how could I structure my group around this topic? And so it looks a little bit differently because I couldn't quite copy and paste the group planning worksheet, but it's essentially, it's got most of the components, all of the components here. So the first essential activity is caregiver learning, and you can see the plan and the key message or the key learning piece is going to be about getting dressed as a teachable moment. And I can use this slide as my talking points here. And I can just, you know, if I want to highlight a few, 3 or 4 of those, I could do that too. And how I'm going to do that is I'm going to talk with caregivers as they arrive about what the topic of the day is, and suggest that they keep that in mind as we play together in the free play time. And then at the group activity time, I'm going to go over the key messages while we're playing together in a big group. So for the coordinated group activity, and this is just some ideas I came up with on the top of my head. I'm sure you guys could come up with some really great ones too. I thought we could do, you know, play This Is the Way We Put on Our Clothes, where we pantomime putting on clothes and could sing it to the song of Here We Go Around the Mulberry Bush, which I will save you all from singing over the air today. But you can imagine it in your head. This is the way I button my shirt, button my shirt, button my shirt, and go through the motions of doing that. And, you know, caregivers with infants can even sort of do that with the child, and maybe even move their hands or their arms to mimic the motions. So that's one way we could do that. And at some point during that, I can share some of those key messages. I might even say, take a break between the verse on the way I button my shirt after I sing that to say, oh, we can also count the buttons on our shirts. Let's count them. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I can say, caregivers, when you're doing this at home, this is a great way to help children learn about counting and numbers. There you go. And then you could also do an I Spy game. You know, play the game in a circle where you look at who has on white shoes today, and have people raise their hands and notice them and count the number of shoes. Who has green pants on? And again, just incorporating those key messages in as you're playing the game. It's like when we're helping children get dressed, we can point out the colors of the clothing and the different colors and talk to them about the textures. And this is going to help them identify the colors and learn some new words. So that's an idea those are some ideas for the coordinated group activity. And then child-directed play activities. You know, this was like an really easy one to think about. It was just playing dress up and getting an assortment of old hand-me-downs and even adult clothes that the children can put on and pretend to play in. And, you know, our role as facilitator can be to help encourage caregivers to participate in that and practice some of those things about talking about colors, textures, sizes of the clothes. Imagining it's a cold and stormy day out, what should we put on? And encouraging the children to try putting the clothing on themselves. And, you know, in terms of materials and supplies, you can bring in some, like I say, some hand-me-downs. And for caregiver relationship building, what I came up with for this one was invite caregivers to share their techniques of helping children to get dressed. So maybe, Monica, going back to your question about frustration, I mean, there might be some conversation that starts around that. It's like, you know, what strategies do you use to help your child choose clothing that is appropriate for the weather today? You know, how can you help guide them towards some good choices there? And then for caregiver leadership, related to this, I was thinking, you know, maybe a few weeks before this group session happens is to ask some caregivers to bring in clothing for the dress-up activity. Maybe they have a couple of shirts or sweaters or shoes that they would be willing to donate or at least lend for this activity. So great. So, and there's a comment from Debbie. We also like to sing, if you're wearing red today, red today, red today. If you're wearing red today, please stand up. It's fun for each kid to get a chance, or 2 or 3, to stand up in the circle and show their colors. That's great. Absolutely. So, I mean, I think for me, this is sort of really fun to start to think about was, you know, going back to what children can learn during those everyday activities. There's all sorts of really interesting things, and there's some really fun ways that we can bring that to the group. So I'd like you to think about that for taking the topic of mealtime and thinking about how you might come up with some different essential activities around highlighting mealtime as an everyday activity. So the caregiver learning piece, again, is mealtime as a teachable moment. And again, your talking points can be what's on here or whatever you come up with about what the caregiver can do at mealtime and what the child learns. So once you go ahead and start, just again in the question box, if you can think of anything about a coordinated group activity that you might have in your Kaleidoscope Play Learn group that would highlight Mealtime is a teachable moment. Involves both children and caregivers. And you don't have to have a huge long explanation, but if you have, just could think of some activity, that would be fun. So think about an activity that you could do with everybody. So Debbie is chiming in. If you have or can make the materials for a sandwich, bread, cheese, lettuce, tomato, meat, etc., you can pass them out to the kids or have them in the middle of the circle and have the kids help you make a sandwich together. Absolutely. Yeah. Or even can use real food. Oh, yep, she's saying, I mean, make like out of felt or construction paper. True. Yes, yes. So, and Monica's saying, preparing snack as a group activity. Yes, absolutely. Doing that as well. And Sue is chiming in that children, we can highlight how children learn about color or math. And Jen saying how the food we're eating gives us energy and helps us grow. It's great. Good. Any other group activities that folks would like to share? And Fran is saying during snack time, we talk about their favorite foods and we eat some of their things they like from home. Sort by color, sometimes only have one color as a snack. That's great. Like you could have Orange Day, and maybe Orange Day is fish crackers and peaches and carrots. Great. Debbie's saying, oh, you guys have, oh my goodness, you guys are just going crazy here, which is great. So we sing a song sometimes during snack. That's right, Debbie, that's great. And Jen and Sue both typed in sharing and passing food, passing the food, manners. That's right. And passing the food, that brings all sorts of things in. I mean, there's sort of eye-hand coordination kind of things that are going when children are serving themselves or we're eating in a family-style manner, as well as trying to figure out what's a fair amount to take. There's some social and emotional pieces that go along with that, more and less. Yes. And Debbie's saying, I like to eat apples and bananas or whatever we're actually eating, so singing. Incorporating sign language into the song whenever possible. Great. Wei Ling is saying, compare fruits, smells, shapes, colors, different ways to eat them. Yeah, bring in a basket of fruit and just have it there and let children hold them, smell them, feel the textures, talk about the colors. Great. Big, small. Great. Good ideas. Now, how about child-directed play activities? So these are the activities that children would and caregivers and parents would be taking, participating in together and choosing. So when you've got the different play areas set out, and it's more of a choice time. What are some ways that you could highlight mealtime as a teachable moment? And Jen is saying set up a play kitchen with foods that can be portioned and shared. Great. Yes, absolutely. Other ideas on what you could do for that child-directed play activity? Oh, Jen's got a great idea here too. Again, about sorting play foods by type, like what goes in the fridge, what goes in the cupboard. Yes, yeah, what things we need to keep cold, what things can go on um, the countertop, or what goes inside the cabinets. Serving food and sharing food to each other, play food, real food. I'm seeing these things coming on the list. And Jen's saying we decorate cookies sometimes. Great, you could do that as a group activity, or you could have a play area where that's the activity that's happening there. That's a kind of a fun edible art activity right there. Different frostings and sprinkles and candies or something that you could put, or fruit that you can put on top of cookies. Great. So here are some things I came up with. Snack time, like you talked about, and having the children actually help with cleaning off the table before and afterwards, setting out plates or napkins, rinsing berries, cutting bananas, and during this time when everybody's sort of working together to prepare the snack, encouraging the caregivers to talk with their children while they work. So giving the caregivers some of those key messages, or these are some things we can do to help make these teachable moments, and let's try it out right now. And we're going to make a snack together. So children get to practice making the snack, and you get to practice making this into a teachable moment. And then, of course, yeah, I think somebody said about the play kitchen. I mean, mealtime seems like an easy, doable, lots of different play activities you could come up with, and having one where there's just a kitchen area. And I would encourage, even bringing in real pots and pans, spoons, bowls, whatever you might have available, so that caregivers can see children using real things that they have in their own cupboards and cabinets, and encourage them to make a pretend meal. And then for caregiver relationship building, asking the caregivers while they're playing during the child free play time here, so to talk with each other about when they first started helping with mealtime when they were children. What tasks were they responsible for? How did that make them feel? That's one idea of ways that you can get conversations going and helping people to get to know each other. And then with caregiver leadership, again, in preparation for this group session, a few weeks before, ask some caregivers to bring some of the materials for the child-directed play activity. And they could be bringing some of the utensils and mealtime customs from their own families' cultures, so that they're represented, everybody's represented as well. Sue chimed in here too, of lining up and taking turns. Yes, like I can imagine that, like if you're doing a snack time where you need to make sure everybody's hands are washed or sanitized or somehow, cleaned, that everybody has to line up and take a turn at making sure their hands get cleaned. And that's lots of skills wrapped up in just doing that. Some self-regulation, patience. Talk about a school readiness skill too, of being asked to do that. And I've heard that some children haven't had that opportunity to experience standing in a line and waiting. And imagine how many times that happens in a kindergarten's day. So great, good idea. So good, you have some great ideas on how to do this, and I hope that you could see the possibilities of how this can work for you to do this in your group. Because I think part of what I like about the everyday activities is that they, as teachable moments, is that they happen all the time. And so you can do one or two things during those activities that is going to help a child learn multiple types of things. And that you can, and when you bring this to your group, you can help the caregivers really connect what happens in the group with what they can do at home. It's like, it really is a validating thing to say, to be able to have somebody in your position, like a facilitator, say, when we talk about the food that we're eating, children are learning about nutrition, they're learning about color, they're learning about textures, and to have the caregivers and parents recognize that often the things that they're doing already are really, really helpful to the child in their care, and what they do on an instinctual level or wherever it's coming from is having a positive effect, and that we want to encourage them to do more. Keep doing it and have fun with it. And they can see how much fun children have when you demonstrate some of these things in their groups. So great. I'm going to slip down here. So coming this fall, we are going ahead and going to be writing some new caregiver lessons on everyday activities as teachable moments. And as you can see, we've got the outline already for two lessons, and we'll have a few others that will be on everyday activities as teachable moments. So you won't have to create these lesson guides on your own. And I will email you the PowerPoint presentation, so you can just take those slides that we have here, and here is your lesson plan, and you can add in whatever activities you want to do. If you don't want to do these, that's fine. Or you want to add to them or do something completely different, that's up to you. But we will be having those available probably in the fall. So there will be 5 new ones on teachable moments, and then 5 new ones on math and science and some other school readiness type of topics. So I just wanted to let you know that those will be coming and available hopefully in the next several months. So, and as a resource to you, I wanted to point out what the Pierce County Library System has done for what they call literacy adventures. Let me see, make sure we're still up. And there's some great ideas that you can use on this website or on this page in your groups. So they have taken some everyday activities that that a lot of families participate in and given some ideas. So I'll just take a look at bath time here. And this is all on a PDF that you are free to use. You can copy as you wish to. So bath time, they have some ideas of what caregivers and parents can do at bath time. If you wanted to use this as a handout, if you're highlighting bath time, or you can borrow some of the ideas that they have here too. I mean, put different sized plastic or metal measuring cups in the tub. I mean, have your own sort of sensory table. It could be even just a plastic box, like a Rubbermaid box or a dishwashing tub, and fill that up, and just as part of demonstrating how, the water play, and children can use bath time as a water play time and what they learn from it. So lots of ideas here on things to do, as well as, yay, some great books that are related to the topic. So you could have a story time as part of your coordinated group activity. And these are some recommendations from the Pierce County Library System, and in particular the librarian Susan, who put this together. So I think these are really wonderful resources. And oops, as you can see at the bottom, it says feel free to copy this information, but please credit the Pierce County Library System. So that's one resource for you. And those are some book titles that they mentioned in some of their activities. Oops. And then other ideas. The Born Learning site has lots of good ideas there on everyday activities and things that families can do to turn those into teachable moments and about what children learn. This website, the Countdown MD, I think it's maryland.org, has excuse me, a PDF booklet in 17 languages. You can download it for free and print it out on tips for turning everyday activities into learning activities. They have it structured a little bit differently than the way we tease the everyday activities out for this webinar, but I still think the information is really valuable. And again, you could use it as a resource for yourself in trying to think about what are your talking points to support the caregiver learning. What are some activities that you could have in the Play and Learn group that highlight that everyday activity, or as well as a resource that families could use as well. And then 0 to 3, if you go and browse the resources for parents page, they have some PDF booklets, English and Spanish, excuse me, The Magic of Everyday Moments is available, and you can print those out and download those for free too. And they have these broken down into different age categories, age groups. So some resources for you on everyday activities as teachable moments. And then the caregivers. So any questions at all, or any thoughts or comments? Or does this sound like something that would be interesting, exciting to do in your group? Go ahead and type in any comments or questions or thoughts in the question box. Okay, nothing's popping up, but feel free to, if you do have a question, go ahead and type it and send it, or a comment or a suggestion, and I'll move on. So, okay, the moment you've all been waiting for. We are going to have the first ever Kaleidoscope Play and Learn contest around everyday activities. It might even be the first ever Kaleidoscope Play and Learn contest. So what we're going to do is each month, this month through May, we'll have an everyday activity of the month. So we will have, I'll have chosen whatever an everyday activity for you to highlight in your groups for that month. So you get to feature that everyday activity of the month in one or more group session that month, should you choose to participate. And if you do so, email me an entry form, which I'll email to you, on which you'll note some information about how your group featured the everyday activity of the month. Then after we've gone through our activities of the month, at the end of May, sometime in June, we'll have a drawing where some lucky person will win a $50 gift certificate to Discount School Supplies. So you can increase your chances of winning by featuring each month's everyday activity of the month. So if you do it once in February, once in March, once in April, once in May, that's 4 months, you have 4 chances to win. And then I will do the drawing and announce the winner sometime around June 30th. And then part of an extra bonus is that when you fill out this entry form, I'll collect a little bit of information from you about the ideas and what you actually did in the group. And so I will compile all that information and share it with everybody, so that at the end of the contest, there'll be a lucky winner of the gift certificate, but then everybody else will get to share in the winnings of all the wonderful ideas that people have tried out and generated from the contest. So the entry form will have this information. And again, I will email all this out to everybody. So I'll ask you to share how did you highlight the everyday activity of the month in your group's coordinated group activity. So just bullet points, short phrases, doesn't have to be beautiful prose. Just let me know, what you did for the coordinated group activity for that group session, and child-directed play activities. So the things that you did at free play time to highlight that everyday activity. Then the second question, just give me some ideas about how the caregivers and parents responded. Did they share any interesting stories, questions, comments? Did they have any really great aha moments or great ideas that you think other facilitators or other families might be interested in knowing about? Put that there. And then number 3 is, did you discover any new resources, book recommendations, or other information that you'd like to share with other facilitators? So did you find a website that was chock full of information on how to make bath time a teachable moment, things like that? And then it should be number 4, but feel free to send any photos from your group if you have releases to do so. So again, part of the activity is that I really want to encourage you to try this, to try to highlight some everyday activities in your groups as part of your caregiver learning. And then to encourage us all to share what we tried and so that we get some fresh and new ideas amongst each other. So the everyday activity of the month, here you go. So February, it is getting dressed. So think about how you might incorporate that. March is going to be mealtime, April bath time, and May is grocery shopping, which is a fun and interesting one. And then so for this February, for this month, the activity is getting dressed. So I'd say plan your group session now. Hold your group session featuring getting dressed sometime before the end of the month, and send your entry to me by the middle of March, and then you'll be entered into the drawing. And again, I will send out reminder emails to you prior to each month so you can prepare. But you have, because you participate in this webinar, you've got a head start because you have this information right here about what's going to be coming up for the next couple of months for that activity of the month. So questions about the contest? Does this sound fun? Interesting? Anybody? Thank you, Fran. Fran says sounds like a fun way to share our ideas. Yeah. Yeah, I'm really hoping that is the case, that we'll have some great ideas that I can put together and send out to everybody. Any other questions, comments about the contest? How about any other questions, thoughts, suggestions from the webinar in general about everyday activities? Any other thoughts that occurred to you want to share before we sign off? Okay. Well, thank you everybody for joining. we are planning our next webinar will be likely sometime in May, and I'm looking at the topic of early math and science skills, what they are, and how to support those in your Kaleidoscope Play and Learn groups, and how to talk with caregivers about those as well. So, so that will be coming up. And May also will be our, at least in Washington State, our official survey month. So I will have surveys available for you and ready to pass out sometime in the next couple of months. And I'll also have another webinar about that as well, about how to administer that survey and pass it out and collect it in your groups. And we do have a new survey form this year. It's a little less complicated than the one that we have been using the past couple of years. So I'm hoping that's going to be helpful to you as well as to the participants who are filling it out. And so look for some notices from me for those webinars and the evaluation that will be coming up as well. Okay. Oh, I've got a question here from Lisa. What are the average group sizes of parents, adults in Kaleidoscope groups? And boy, that is a tough question. There's a range of, I would say, 4 families on up to sometimes some groups that are really big, up to like 40 or 50 families participating. And I think Sue from Chinese Information Service Center is one of the facilitators who's on the webinar, but also is a facilitator of the group. Knows that there are some really large groups. She has one in a shopping center here. And so figure, but average size I would say is probably, or one to go for would be anywhere from 8 to 10 families on up to maybe about 20 families participating. And you think about families in terms of 1 adult and 1 or 2 children that are attending with the adult. So if you're in the range, you have 12 families, that probably means at least 24 people, including both children and adults. I hope that answers your question. But I would think most are in that range of 8 families to 20 families attending, with some bigger ones. You're welcome, Lisa. Yeah. Any other questions, thoughts? Well, thank you for joining in. I really appreciate it. And thank you for participating and hanging in there. We tried to use some new technology. It didn't work, but the old one of typing in the questions still works. So we'll keep doing that. I did and am recording this webinar right now. So if you want to listen to it later or have a coworker or somebody that you think would benefit from it, I'll email the link tomorrow as well. So folks will have a chance to participate even if they couldn't make the live webinar. So thank you, everybody. I appreciate your participation, and hopefully I'll see some of you real soon. All right. Take care.